If you were trapped in a frozen bunker in 1943, surrounded by snow, frost creeping through your boots, and enemy scouts just beyond the ridge, your life might depend on one thing: not a rifle, not a ration tin, but a small, glowing brick, giving off heat without a spark, without smoke, and without sound. To the untrained eye, it looked like nothing more than a piece of hardened clay. But to those who knew its secret, it was a silent miracle. A life-saving invention that helped soldiers survive one of the coldest winters in history: the World War II fire brick. In the brutal winter of 1943, the Eastern Front was a frozen wasteland. Temperatures dropped below -30 degrees Celsius. Engines seized, rations froze solid. And for soldiers, even lighting a fire could mean death. Because in the still, white silence of snow, smoke was a death sentence. A thin gray line curling into the air was enough to give away your position to bombers or snipers miles away. For both the Axis and Allied forces, staying warm became a deadly puzzle. How do you make heat without light or smoke? On both sides of the war, engineers, medics, and field scientists faced the same challenge. In underground shelters and hidden hospitals, wounded soldiers were dying from hypothermia before their wounds could even be treated. In forward outposts, frostbite crippled entire units. A small fire could save a life, but it could also expose dozens to the enemy. So, armies started experimenting, quietly, with smokeless heat. The British Home Guard tested compact char blocks made from sawdust and paraffin, small, slow-burning fuel cells that gave minimal smoke. The Germans took it further. Their engineers in occupied territories experimented with clay composites and refractory materials, substances that could store and release heat without cracking. And from those experiments came one of the most ingenious wartime tools ever built: the fire brick. A simple, dense ceramic block infused with compounds that could be heated, recharged, and reused, producing warmth for hours in total silence. It wasn't much to look at. Just a rectangular chunk of hardened clay, about the size of a loaf of bread. But inside, it was chemistry at work, a blend of fire clay, silica, and aluminum oxide, materials that could withstand over 1,000 degrees of heat. Engineers soaked or coated these bricks in mixtures of wax, alcohol, and animal fat. When lit, they didn't burn like wood or coal. They glowed. No flame, no smoke, just steady, invisible heat. It was, quite literally, a fire without fire. Here's how it functioned. First, soldiers or engineers heated the brick over a small external flame, perhaps a hidden alcohol burner. Once warmed, the brick absorbed and stored that heat deep within its core. After a few minutes, the flame could be extinguished. And yet, the brick kept glowing, radiating warmth for hours. In some versions, a thin clay glaze sealed the surface so tightly that no smoke escaped at all. A few glowing bricks placed in a metal tray could raise the temperature of a small bunker by several degrees, enough to stop frostbite, dry clothing, or warm hands that could no longer feel. Reports from field diaries describe them being used in underground hideouts, secret radio stations, and field hospitals. British engineers used preheated thermal blocks, heated outside, and carried into bunkers to release warmth slowly. German units used reusable ceramic bricks, which they could recharge with solid fuel paste again and again. In the icy forests of Poland, resistance fighters used them to keep medical plasma and morphine from freezing solid. Radio operators relied on them to keep condensation from shorting their fragile transmitters. And officers? They simply used them to survive long, silent nights without revealing their position. The real genius of the fire brick wasn't in the material. It was in the principle. You weren't burning the brick. You were storing energy inside it. That stored heat radiated outward slowly, like a primitive battery, but for warmth. The compounds like wax or fuel paste acted as low-smoke energy carriers. Once ignited, they burned invisibly inside the pores of the ceramic, heating it from within. The result? A glowing ember disguised as a brick. No light, no smoke, no sound. Just survival. Imagine the scene. A medic kneeling beside an injured soldier, the only light coming from a faint orange glow under a metal tray. Outside, snow falls silently. The air is 20 below zero. Inside, that single brick keeps plasma liquid long enough to save a life. In those moments, it wasn't about chemistry or engineering. It was about human ingenuity under fire. A silent heater, built not for comfort, but for survival. It's one of those small, forgotten inventions that remind us how soldiers didn't just fight the enemy, they fought the elements. Surprisingly, you can still recreate one today using basic materials. Start with a fire brick or high-density ceramic block, available at most hardware stores. Melt some candle wax and mix it with a little paraffin oil and sawdust to form a thick paste. Brush that mixture onto the brick so it soaks into the pores. When it solidifies, you've built a primitive, smokeless heater. To activate it, heat it over a small flame or camping stove for a few minutes. Then remove it and let it radiate. The warmth will last for hours. It's simple, effective, and eerily similar to what soldiers used 8 decades ago. But remember, always do this safely. Outdoors or in ventilated spaces. The original soldiers didn't have much choice. We do. And that's where this story becomes more than just history. Because what those soldiers created wasn't just a brick. It was a mindset. In war, you couldn't always rely on supplies or technology. You had to rely on creativity. The fire brick reminds us that true preparedness doesn't come from gear. It comes from knowledge. Knowing how to use what's around you. How to survive when every spark could expose you. It's the same principle modern survivalists live by today. And yes, the idea lived on. Modern camping heat cells, catalytic heaters, and even chemical hand warmers all trace their lineage to this wartime invention. The same physics that powered those secret bunker bricks now keep mountaineers warm on Everest and preppers alive in blizzards. Even eco-friendly stoves today use refractory bricks, the same material, to store heat and release it slowly overnight. It's a quiet legacy of war, hiding in plain sight in modern homes. Think about that. A simple, forgotten tool, born out of desperation, still shapes how we design for warmth and survival today. In the chaos of global war, engineers weren't just building weapons. They were building ways to endure. The fire brick might never appear in history books or museums. It had no trigger, no wings, no glory. But it saved lives, in silence. And sometimes, that's the most extraordinary kind of heroism there is. The next time you warm your hands by a ceramic heater, or feel the steady comfort of a thermal stone, remember that somewhere, in a freezing bunker 80 years ago, a soldier felt that same warmth, and stayed alive because of it. The fire brick may have been small, but it carried a powerful truth, that innovation, even in war, can be born from compassion, from the simple human need to stay warm, to survive, and to keep hope alive. This was the story of the World War II fire brick, the fire that no one could see. If you found this fascinating and want to explore more forgotten wartime inventions, from hidden compasses to survival knives and secret rations, make sure to subscribe to Forgotten Survival. Because history isn't just about what we fought for, it's about how we endured. And sometimes, the smallest brick can tell the warmest story.